In this video, we've got a pro agents tier list so we can get a better idea of the meta at the highest level of play. What's going on, ProGuides fam? It's your resident Radiant, Royal G, and man, Champions has been super hype. All the teams are bringing world level skill to the table, and it's been crazy seeing some of the strats being pulled off on maps like Pearl. But what's also really interesting is that the comps on these maps are nowhere near what it's like in ranked, so we're seeing a completely different side of Valorant. Imagine Viper and Astra on Pearl in your ranked games. Can't be me. Anyways, that's why today we've got a pro play tier list to get an idea of the agent meta at the highest levels of Valorant. And before we hop in, if you want to make sure that if you want to land in the rank of your dreams before the act ends, then make sure to visit us at ProGuides.com, where our Immortal and Radiant level coaches are more than eager to help you out. Link is in the description if you're interested. Now let's hop right into the tier list. So for this tier list, our main criteria that we'll be looking at is based around agent pick rates in the tournament. Since the pro meta is much more defined and well researched, pick rates are typically a good judge of how the pros view certain agents and how useful they are on certain maps. And of course, there's a few things to keep note of. For some agents, their pick rate may be a bit lower but are heavily picked on certain maps, which would make them more meta, whereas some other agents may be picked more but have a fragmented pick rate, which means they have more alternatives. This is also important. Anyways, we'll be keeping this in mind as we go through the tier list. At the very top of the S tier for this tier list, we have none other than Chamber. Chamber owns the top spot because he is being used on pretty much every map in pro play right now. And if we take a closer look at his stats, he has an above 75% pick rate on the maps Haven, Fracture, Icebox, and Pearl. Chamber is the strongest sentinel even after his nerfs, and his defense side aggression is unmatched by pretty much every agent at the moment. Meanwhile, his attack side weaknesses are covered by his teammates' utility, and also the nature of pro play being a bit more passive in most situations gives Chamber more room to breathe as a lurker. But of course, his overall pick rate more than speaks for itself on how pros evaluate his usefulness on a team. Following up Chamber in the S tier is Fade. Fade is a versatile initiator in pro play. Her kit allows her to scout enemies out easily on attack side for drawn out rounds, and her kit is also suitable for executes, which gives her a lot of options in game. Fade has an above 75% pick rate on the maps Haven, Ascent, and Pearl, and she's been picked on every map except Breeze so far, which says a whole lot about an agent that's also the newest addition to the roster. There's no doubt in my mind that Fade will become a staple in the meta as time goes on. Third up, we have KO, one of the rising stars ever since he had his kit buffed. KO is a really strong agent, especially for pro play, with how versatile his kit is and how uniquely teams can play around his suppression mechanic. Although he is really only meta or needed on a comp on Breeze and Ascent, KO has been used on pretty much every map. One big reason in my opinion is that KO can work well for teams specifically for counter-stratting because his knife and ultimate can remove utility from the equation. Other than that, he's just a generally strong agent with strong flashes and a nice molly as well. KO is a staple in this year's tournament, and it's not hard to understand why. Closing out the S tier for this tier list, we have Viper. Viper is an S tier because she is meta defining on certain maps, and no one else can replace her really. Viper has an 100% pick rate on Icebox and Breeze this tournament, and I think it's pretty obvious why that's the case. Meanwhile, she also has an above 50% pick rate on Bind and Pearl due to her ability to flex as a sentinel lurk. Viper brings along a really strong set of tools for defense and attack, which allows team to play two different playstyles with her depending on the map, and that's why she's valuable in the meta. But something tells me that it's not really healthy for a map to have only one viable controller, which is why I have to ask, what type of agent do you think the next agent will be? When the next agent comes in, I really hope it's a controller that can be an alternative to Viper, and also maybe an agent that can make Chamber's life a bit harder, if that's even possible. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Heading into the A tier, we have Omen leading the pack. Omen is a do-it-all smokes character that the pro scene relies on for most general cases. He's not quite meta-defining or anything, as he's only been picked this tournament on the maps Haven, Ascent, Fracture, and Pearl, but he still gets a good amount of use. Omen is a pretty versatile pick that also gives the controller player a lot more freedom, which is great for smokes players to make plays if necessary. And especially in coordinated play where standard angles may not cut it, Omen provides the necessary repositioning tools to either hold an off angle or to escape after a duel. Ever since Silva's nerfs, Silva's Information King status seems to have slowly faded away. Get it? So far in this tournament, he's been heavily outpaced by Fade in terms of pick rate in the Info Gathering Initiator subclass. But of course, that doesn't count him out either. He does have a 100% pick rate on Breeze and a 71% pick rate on Icebox. At the same time though, these are also two maps with the most stable metas, which makes it hard to justify Silva as a special case or anything. It should be noted that Fade is used more on maps that Silva is not, and vice versa, as they both do the same job but at different optimal ranges. Raze and Jett kind of trade spots for usefulness depending on the map currently, which is why neither are up there on the top of this tier list. Also, Raze isn't particularly necessary on any map other than Bind either. Raze has an 100% pick rate on Bind and around 50% on Haven, Fracture, and Pearl, so it's not like she's only used on one map in the meta. It's just that competition between Raze and Jett is kind of making it hard for either agent to shine above the other. As for Jett, we've already sort of covered the reasons why she's currently sitting in the A tier. What once was a meta-defining and borderline overpowered agent in Valorant has since fallen off due to her nerfs as well as Chamber's introduction. However, this doesn't mean Jett is a bad pick or anything. He's just not as oppressive as she used to be, and that's perfectly fine. Ever since she's been pushed away from the main AWP role, teams have now embraced her entry prowess and tend to focus on her ability to create space on maps like Breeze and Ascent. Some people might be surprised to see that Breach is in the A tier for this tier list, because in most cases, he's not really a popular or good pick in ranked. But in the pro scene, he is meta-defining on Haven and Fracture. With a 65% and 79% pick rate respectively, pro teams seem to really like pairing Breach with agents that can take advantage of his stuns like Neon or Raze. Breach does not face the same gameplay limitations in pro play like he does in solo queue due to the team play and coordination. Hence, this agent is allowed to shine and be used in full glory as a CC heavy initiator. Sage surprisingly has been picked on every map except Breeze's tournament, but unfortunately she's not picked that much on each map. Her best pick rate is on Icebox, which is mainly due to her wall plant strategy on B site typically. But we can chalk up Sage's presence in this tournament to being a comfort pick or a counter pick that teams are using to change up the playstyle. Since Sage's wall has a lot of different applications, a prepared team can definitely find ways to use her wall to create small advantages like information, safety, or completely unpredictable off angles. Next up, Neon has proven herself to be a rising star in solo queue and in pro play in the past few months, but for the most case, there's only a few teams that really embrace her play, which is Optic Gaming. And the map she's seeing the most play on right now is Fracture, and she has a 71% pick rate on it. Other than that map though, she isn't picked very much, so unless other teams start really running Neon, it's hard to say if she's a really strong pick or a niche pick that Optic is mastering. Brim as a whole is a pretty situational agent. Currently he has good pick rates on Bind and Fracture, but he hasn't been picked on any other map beside those two. He's meta on Bind and Fracture though, where the sites are a little blockier and executes are more hectic. The reason for this is because his strengths play well into a fast execute to post plant strategy, but at the same time, he kind of forces a team to play that style or sacrifice limited smokes and generally weaker utility. While some teams might like this style of play, others who want to play a slower default playstyle might not find the same value in Brim. Hence why he is a situational agent only for the more fast-paced maps like Bind and Fracture. A big surprise and a huge change from tournaments of this past year is Skye. Back then, Skye was a common second initiator pick for a lot of maps, but in this tournament, she's really only picked on Bind with a 79% pick rate. And it makes sense. Ever since Fade came in, there's really no specialty that Skye has over any other initiator anymore. Apart from Bind where her flashes can navigate corners more easily, it's hard to justify Skye over another specialist. And as a result, Skye is just on the sidelines more often than not. For the last pick in B tier, Astra is in a weird position right now. She is certainly not the best smoke agent in pro play by any means, but she is seeing play on Pearl specifically, as she boasts a 75% pick rate on that map. The early meta on Pearl seems to favor defensive agents, which is why Astra and Viper are teamed up once again for double controller / sentinel hybrid duties. Having two powerful site denial sentinels as well as Chamber may seem overkill, but it seems to be the preference for teams at the moment, so we'll have to see if the meta shifts at all in the future. Heading into the C tier, we have agents that have fallen to the wayside almost completely, and it starts with Killjoy. Ever since Chamber stole all of the Sentinel's slender, Killjoy has become a niche pick only on Ascent with a 56% pick rate. But outside of that, she's pretty much non-existent on the other maps. What used to be a staple in professional play has quickly fallen out of the meta, and is just collecting dust in Agent Select. Cipher is in the same boat as Killjoy right now, except he sees even less play, which is understandable. Chamber is so dominant in pro play that Cipher and Killjoy are not even seeing the light of day, and on his best map Breeze, he only sees a 33% pick rate. I wonder if this is the cue for Riot to take a look at the Sentinels role and consider giving some much needed buffs or reworks. Along with the Fallen Sentinels is Phoenix at the bottom of the barrel in pro play right now. There's pretty much no one using him despite his buffs, but it's nice to see Team Liquid giving Phoenix a chance every once in a while. But at least for now, he's just not that guy. I mean, we pretty much all know who's on the bottom, and it's Reyna and Yoru. There's really not much to say about this. I think everyone knows the justifications. And as much as I wish Yoru would have more representation, he might just be too risky to field at a world champion level at this moment. And with that said, that's our pro play agent tier list. Let me know whether you agree or disagree in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and consider subscribing. It's been Royal G, and good luck on the grind this episode.